Hey folks, today we're digging into a story that sits right at the terrifying crossroads of sickness and suspicion. We have Steve, a man trapped in his own body by a cruel illness, and his seemingly perfect wife, Eliza, his angel of mercy. But what happens when a loving suggestion to prepare for the future starts to feel less like care and more like a countdown? What do you do when you suspect your caregiver might be planning your final chapter? So before we dive in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really enjoy what I'm doing here. Let us know where you're tuning in from and what time it is. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive into today's story. My wife, Eliza, often tells me she loves me to death. It is a common phrase, I know, a sweet little hyperbole shared between couples. But lately, I have begun to fixate on the literal meaning. My name is Steve. I am 52 years old, and I am a prisoner in my own home. More accurately, I am a prisoner in my own body. A degenerative nerve disorder, the kind doctors describe with sympathetic shrugs and vague timelines, has claimed the use of my legs and is slowly, methodically, stealing the strength from my arms and hands. My mind, for now, remains my own, a sharp, clear, and increasingly terrified mind. From my motorized wheelchair, I have a perfect view of the garden Eliza so meticulously maintains. Roses, mostly. Deep, blood-red ones. She says their beauty is a testament to life's vibrancy. I used to think that was poetic. Now it just sounds like a threat. She moves through the house with a quiet efficiency that once soothed me. Now, every silent footstep on the hardwood floor sounds like a drum beat, counting down. She is 15 years my junior, a former nurse whose energy seems boundless. She gave up her career to care for me full-time. Everyone says so. Our friends, my former colleagues, what little family I have left. Steve, you are so lucky to have Eliza. She is a saint, an angel on earth. I used to believe it too. I would watch her prepare my medications, a rainbow of pills sorted into a plastic organizer, and feel a wave of profound gratitude. I would feel her strong hands helping me transfer from the chair to the bed, her touch gentle but firm, and I would think myself the luckiest man alive, even in my broken state. She was my anchor in the churning sea of my own physical decay. The first tremor in this perfect facade came on a Tuesday. It was raining outside, a steady gray drizzle that matched the mood inside my own head. Eliza was fluffing my pillows, a gesture she performed a dozen times a day. Her smile was bright, but her eyes seemed to be looking at something as just past me. "Honey," she began, her voice as smooth as the silk of her blouse. "We need to talk about something. It is a little morbid, I know, but it is important." I braced myself. A new medication. A doctor's report she had been hiding. "I think it is time you wrote a will, Steve," she said, her hand resting on my shoulder. "It is just about being responsible. For us. For me. So I know what your wishes are. So everything is in order. It is what a good husband, a responsible man, would do." A cold knot formed in my stomach. A will. Of course, it was logical. I was a man with a terminal diagnosis and a considerable estate from my years as a successful novelist. But the way she said it, with such calm, practical finality, as if she were discussing grocery lists, sent a chill through me that had nothing to do with the weather. I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Impatience? Eagerness? It was gone before I could be sure. I chalked it up to my own growing paranoia, a side effect of the cocktail of drugs I took daily. "You are right, of course," I managed to say, my voice a little hoarse. "It is the responsible thing to do." Her smile returned, warmer this time. "Good. I am glad you understand, honey. We will call the lawyer next week." She kissed my forehead and left the room, humming a little tune. The cold knot in my stomach did not dissolve. It felt like it was starting to grow roots. The real turning point, the moment that tore the beautiful curtain down and revealed the rotten stage behind it, happened 2 weeks later. I was in my study, trying to work. My own laptop had finally succumbed to my clumsy, weakening fingers. A dropped cup of coffee had fried its motherboard, leaving me technologically stranded. I was a writer without his pen. Eliza, ever the problem solver, had handed me her sleek, lightweight tablet. "Use this for now, honey. I will take yours to the repair shop tomorrow." I was grateful. I spent an hour tapping out notes for a new book idea, my mind temporarily distracted. Then a pop-up ad for a cruise line filled the screen. Annoyed, I swiped to close the browser window. But my finger fumbled, and instead of closing the window, it swiped down, revealing her recent search history. I was not trying to snoop. I swear I was not. But the words were there, illuminated on the screen, stark and undeniable. The first line was innocent enough. "Best recipes for low-sodium diets." Sensible. My doctors had recommended it. The second one made me pause. "Painless ways to die at home." My breath caught in my throat. Maybe she was researching for a friend, I told myself. Or maybe it was for a book club selection. A dark thriller, perhaps. My own novels were full of such things. But the list continued, each line a sledgehammer blow to my carefully constructed reality. Morphine overdose symptoms in adults. How long does morphine take to work for sedation? Is a will legally void if the signatory is not of sound mind? My hands began to tremble, the tablet feeling slippery in my suddenly sweaty palms. My heart was a wild drum against my ribs. And then I saw it. The final damning query. The one that erased all doubt, all plausible deniability, all hope that I was just a paranoid, sick old man. How to legally sign a DNR form for a spouse. Do not resuscitate. The room tilted. The words on the screen blurred. I felt a wave of nausea so profound, I thought I would be sick right there in my expensive wheelchair. She was not just thinking about it. She was researching the specifics, the dosage, the legality, the paperwork. The humming I heard from the kitchen was no longer the sound of a happy wife. It was the sound of a predator, patiently waiting. I quickly cleared the history, my fingers shaking so badly it took 3 tries. I set the tablet down just as she walked back into the study, a cup of tea in her hand. "How is the writing going, love?" she asked, her smile as radiant as ever. "Fine," I said, my voice sounding distant and thin to my own ears. "Just fine." That night, I did not sleep. Every time she rolled over in bed, every time her arm brushed against me, I flinched. The woman sleeping beside me was a stranger who was plotting my demise. The next morning, I knew I could not do this alone. I waited until Eliza had gone out for what she called her essential grocery run, a trip that seemed to take longer and longer these days. I called my lawyer, Mark. He was more than my lawyer. He was my oldest friend. We had been through college together, through bad marriages and good investments. He was the only person on this planet I knew I could trust without reservation. "Mark," I said, my voice low, almost a whisper, "I need to see you. It is about my estate." Steve, you sound terrible. Is everything all right? No, nothing is all right. But I cannot talk about it over the phone. Can you come to the house? She thinks I am napping. Mark was there in 20 minutes. I told him everything. I told him about the will conversation, about the tablet, about the search history. I saw the look on his face shift from concern to professional skepticism. Steve, are you sure? He asked gently. You are on a lot of medication. It can make you see things, imagine things. I am not imagining it, Mark. I saw it. The words, DNR, morphine, I am a writer. I deal in words. I know what they mean. He looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. He saw the terror in my eyes was real. Okay, Steve. Okay. The search history is circumstantial, flimsy, but the DNR, that is something I can check on. Let me make a call. I have a guy, a private investigator. He is discreet. He can pose as an agent from the life insurance company, doing a routine file audit with the hospital. If there is a DNR on file, he will find it. The next 48 hours were the longest of my life. I had to pretend. I had to smile when Eliza spooned soup into my mouth. The same soup I now imagined was laced with something more than herbs. I had to thank her when she brought me my pain medication, the same morphine she had been researching. I palmed the pills, hiding them in my cheek like a prisoner in a movie, only to spit them out into a tissue when she left the room. I was acting for my life. The call came on Friday afternoon. Eliza was in the garden, pruning her beloved roses. I saw her through the window, wearing big gloves, snipping away dead heads with a pair of shiny shears. I am on speaker, Mark, I said into the phone, my voice tight. Okay, Steve. Listen to me. Mark's voice was grim, all traces of skepticism gone. We found it. There is a do not resuscitate order in your active file at the hospital. It was submitted 3 weeks ago. My stomach dropped. The signature? There was a pause. The signature is yours, Steve. Or rather, it is a very, very good forgery of your signature. My guy has a copy. It is dated the day after you two discussed you writing a will. I closed my eyes. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. This was real. This was happening. My angel of mercy was a black widow in disguise, patiently spinning her web, preparing to deliver the final, fatal bite. I was not just sick, I was being hunted. Steve, are you there? Mark's voice was sharp with concern. I opened my eyes and looked out at my wife. She was smiling now, admiring her work, the red roses vibrant against the green leaves. I am here, Mark, I said, a strange calm settling over me. The fear was still there, a cold, hard stone in my gut, but now it was mixed with something else, something hard and sharp, resolve. She made a mistake, Mark. She underestimated me. She thinks she is dealing with a sick old man, but she forgot what I do for a living. What do you mean? I write psychological thrillers, I said, my voice devoid of any weakness. I spend my days thinking like a killer, and thinking like a man who has to outsmart one. It is time I put my work into practice. I need you to help me write a new final chapter. The stage was set. My loving wife had cast me as the victim in her little play. She had no idea I was about to rewrite the entire script. The first rule of survival is to control your environment. My environment was a 2-story house that had become my gilded cage, and the zookeeper was my wife. The second rule is to understand your enemy. I had spent a lifetime creating fictional monsters on a page, delving into their psychologies, their motivations, their fatal flaws. Eliza's fatal flaw was a potent cocktail of greed and arrogance. She believed she was smarter than me. She believed my illness had softened not just my body, but my mind. This was the foundation upon which I would build my stage. Our meeting with Mark was no longer about legal advice. It was a war council. He came over the next day, under the guise of discussing the initial draft of the will Eliza was so eager for me to write. She welcomed him with fresh coffee and a plate of cookies, the perfect hostess. She made a show of giving us our privacy, saying, "I will leave you two to the morbid man stuff," with a playful wink, before retreating to the garden. The moment the patio door slid shut, Mark's face hardened. "She is good," he muttered, pulling a legal pad from his briefcase. "She is chillingly good." "She has had practice," I replied, my voice low. "Now let's talk strategy. I do not want to just escape this, Mark. I want her caught. I want her to face justice for what she planned to do. I need proof that is ironclad." Mark nodded, his pen already moving. "Okay, Steve. Here's the play. It is a two-front attack, legal and theatrical. First, the legal. Tomorrow morning, I will secretly draft your real last will and testament. Everything, and I mean every last cent, every stock, this house, your literary rights, will go to your niece, Sarah. We will get a mobile notary, someone I trust implicitly, to come here while Eliza is at her yoga class. We will sign it, seal it, and file it. Legally, it will be your final, binding word. Sarah, my late sister's daughter. A bright, wonderful young woman just starting her own life. The thought of her, safe and provided for, was the only warmth I had felt in weeks. Good, I said. That secures the assets. Now for the theater. Mark leaned forward. This is your arena, Steve. But here is the legal framework. We need to get her on tape. We need to record her admitting her intentions, or at the very least, confirming her knowledge and encouragement of your peaceful end. The forged DNR is a serious crime, but proving intent to murder is another level. We need her own words to hang her. This was where my mind, the only part of me that still worked perfectly, kicked into high gear. We will not just get a confession, Mark. We will get a performance. I will write the script. The plan was audacious, something straight out of one of my own novels. We would create a fake will, a document that gave Eliza almost everything she wanted. It would be her victory lap. We would schedule a formal signing for this fake will. We would invite her to be the guest of honor, the primary witness, and we would film the entire thing. I will need cameras, I said. At least 3. High definition, with crystal clear audio. One on the bookshelf, one hidden in a lamp, maybe one in a picture frame. They need to see her face when she thinks she has won. I can get the equipment, Mark assured me. The best stuff. My PI owes me a favor. He can install it when she is out. He's an expert at this. The final piece, I said, looking Mark squarely in the eye, is me. I have to be convincing. I have to be the frail, fading man who is ready to give up. I have to make her believe I am gratefully, willingly walking into the long sleep she has planned for me. Mark was silent for a moment. Can you do it, Steve? Can you sit across from her and play that part, knowing what you know? I thought of the search history. I thought of the forged signature on a document designed to let me die. I thought of my niece, Sarah, who deserved a future. I am the best actor she will ever meet, I said. The days that followed were the most difficult of my life. I was a spy in my own home, a character in my own thriller. Every interaction was a scene. Every word I spoke was a line of dialogue. I began my performance subtly. I started sighing more, a deep, weary sound. I would let my head droop as if the effort of holding it up was too much. When she spoke to me, I would sometimes let my eyes glaze over, as if my mind was drifting. "Are you feeling all right, honey?" she asked one evening, her brow furrowed with what looked like concern. "You seem distant." "Just tired," I murmured, letting my voice sound weak. "So very tired of it all. The pain, the helplessness." I saw a flicker of something in her eyes again. This time I recognized it clearly. It was not impatience. It was triumph. I started talking about the past, about my late sister, about regrets. I was weaving the emotional tapestry that would make my final act believable. I told Eliza how much her care meant to me, how I could not have survived this long without her. "You are my angel, Eliza," I told her one night, reaching for her hand with my trembling one. Her skin felt cold. "I do not know what I would do without you." "You never have to, Steve," she whispered, squeezing my hand. "I will be here until the very end." The ambiguity of that statement hung in the air between us, thick and suffocating. Meanwhile, Mark worked in the shadows. The real will was signed and secured. The cameras were installed during one of Eliza's extended shopping trips. They were invisible. Perfect. A tiny lens in the spine of a leather-bound copy of Moby Dick. Another peering out from the base of a Tiffany lamp. A third in the frame of a photo of my parents. The room was wired. The stage was set. The most dangerous part of the game was the medication. My nightly dose of morphine for the nerve pain. She would prepare it in a syringe, a clear liquid of potential oblivion. I developed a system. I would have a small, absorbent sponge hidden in my fist. As she injected the drug into the port in my arm, I would complain of a sudden cramp in my leg, a distraction technique as old as time. In that split second of her diverted attention, I would squeeze the sponge against the injection site, absorbing a small but significant amount of the liquid before it could enter my bloodstream. Later, in the bathroom, I would squeeze the contents into the toilet and flush my would-be executioner's work away. It was a risky, desperate act, and I knew it was not sustainable. The clock was ticking. All right, let's just pause here for a second. Steve is playing the most dangerous role of his life. He has to pretend to be helpless while knowing the person caring for him wants him gone. What would you do in this situation? Would you have the nerve to see a plan like this through, or would you have confronted her by now? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to read them. The moment to spring the trap came a week after the cameras were installed. I felt I had laid enough groundwork. My performance as a man on the verge of giving up was, I felt, worthy of an award. I called Eliza into the study. I had the fake will, drafted by Mark, sitting on my desk. It was a masterpiece of legal deception, full of flowery language about my undying love and gratitude for my cherished wife. "Eliza," I began, my voice a practiced, fragile whisper, "Mark has finished the draft, the one we talked about." She glided to my side, her eyes scanning the first page. I watched her pupils dilate slightly as she read the clauses leaving her the house, the investment portfolio, the lion's share of my literary estate. "Oh, Steve," she breathed, her voice thick with emotion that was as fake as the document she was holding. It is too much." "It is not enough," I said, looking up at her, my eyes pleading. "It is the least I can do for all you have sacrificed, but I want it to be perfect, official. I have asked Mark to come over on Friday, with a notary, to make it all final." "Of course, honey, whatever you want." "And I want you here, Eliza," I said, delivering the key line. "I want you to sign as the main witness. It is important to me that your name is on it, a testament to our partnership, to the end. She leaned down and kissed me, a long, lingering kiss that felt like a snake sealing a bargain. I would not miss it for the world, she said. For the next 2 days, she was euphoric. She hummed constantly. She brought me a ridiculously expensive bottle of single malt scotch to celebrate, she said. To celebrate what exactly? My impending financial and literal death? I thanked her and let her pour me a small glass, which I discreetly tipped into a potted plant when she turned her back. Her arrogance was making her sloppy. She saw the finish line. She could already taste the money. She had no idea she was not running a victory lap. She was walking the last mile. The night before the signing, I lay awake in bed, staring into the darkness. Fear, cold and sharp, was my companion. What if I had miscalculated? What if she saw through the ruse? What if one of the cameras failed? The risks were immense. I could feel my heart pounding, a frantic bird trapped in the cage of my ribs. I looked over at Eliza. She was sleeping soundly, a faint, serene smile on her face. The face of an angel dreaming of an inheritance. It was that smile that solidified my resolve. The fear did not vanish, but it was burned away by a cold, righteous anger. She had planned to murder me with a smile on her face. The least I could do was expose her with one of my own. Tomorrow, the curtain would rise on the final act, and I, the dying man, would be the one taking the bow. Friday arrived, bright and painfully clear. The kind of beautiful day that makes a mockery of dark intentions. I sat in my study, the room now a theater stage, and waited. I had dressed in a simple gray sweater, wanting to look as faded and unremarkable as possible. My hands, resting on the arms of my wheelchair, were genuinely trembling, a mixture of fear and adrenaline. For once, my body's betrayal was a useful stage prop. Eliza was a vision in a pale yellow dress. She looked like springtime itself. She fussed over me, adjusting my collar, bringing me a glass of water I did not ask for. Her excitement was a low electric hum beneath her serene facade. She believed this was her coronation day. At precisely 2 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Mark entered first, his face a perfect mask of legal solemnity. He was followed by a woman in her late 40s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. He introduced her as Susan, the notary public. Eliza greeted them both with a gracious, somber smile, the dutiful wife presiding over a sad but necessary occasion. "Thank you both for coming," Eliza said, her voice soft. "This is a difficult day, but Steve is being so brave." I nearly choked on the irony. We all gathered around my large oak desk. The cameras were rolling, silent witnesses to the drama about to unfold. Mark placed the stack of papers, the fake will, in front of me. The top page was filled with legal jargon, but I knew its contents by heart. It was a love letter to my own murderer. I took a deep, shuddering breath, a key part of my performance. "Before we begin," I said, my voice thin and raspy, I need to say something." Eliza placed her hand on my shoulder. "Of course, my love." I looked from Mark to Susan, then let my gaze rest on my wife. "Eliza, my dear, I want to thank you for everything. When this illness took hold, I thought my life was over. But you gave me a reason to keep going." The words tasted like ash in my mouth. "This document," I said, tapping the papers, "is the only way I have left to show my gratitude." I saw her eyes glisten with unshed crocodile tears. "You have been so strong for me," I continued, pushing further, "even when we had the hard conversations about the future. You helped me see that it is okay to prepare. You agree this is for the best, do you not? Getting my affairs in order like this?" "Yes, Steve," she whispered, her voice catching. "It is the responsible thing to do." "And you have been so brave," I pressed on, my voice dropping lower. "Even when we talked about the end, you helped me accept that it is better to go peacefully, without pain. I only want what is best for you, honey, for you to be at peace." She was saying the lines I had written for her, and she did not even know it. Now for the final, crucial piece. I looked at her, my eyes wide with feigned vulnerability. "And that means no heroic measures, right, Eliza? We talked about this. If my heart were to stop, it is best to just let me go, as per my wishes, the ones we discussed. You agree?" She looked from me to Mark, a portrait of loving solemnity. "Yes, Steve, I agree. No machines, no futile interventions, just peace." "Thank you," I breathed out, as if a great weight had been lifted. I picked up the pen. My hand shook violently as I signed my name at the bottom of the page. Then Mark slid the document over to Eliza. "As the primary witness, if you would sign here, Mrs. Miller." Eliza picked up the pen. Her signature was a confident, elegant flourish. She had done it. She had won. I watched the small, triumphant smile play on her lips as she set the pen down. It was the most beautiful, damning thing I had ever seen. I let the silence hang in the room for a full 5 seconds. Then I sat up straighter in my chair. I cleared my throat, and when I spoke, my voice was not the weak, wavering whisper of a dying man. It was the clear, strong voice of a man in complete control. "Thank you, Eliza." She looked at me, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. The tone was wrong. This was not in her script. "Thank you," I repeated, my voice like ice, "for witnessing my real will. The one I signed last week with a different notary. The one that leaves my entire estate, down to the last paperclip, to my niece, Sarah." The color drained from her face. Her smiling mouth hung open slightly. What are you talking about, Steve? This is the will." "No," I said, leaning forward as much as my body would allow. "This is a prop. A very convincing one, I admit. And you have just given a stellar performance for the cameras." I nodded my head toward the bookshelf. "You can look at the one in the spine of that copy of Moby Dick, or the one in the lamp, or the one in my parents' picture frame. I believe you are on camera 3 right now. The audio is excellent. We got your full agreement about letting me die. It will pair beautifully with the evidence of my forged DNR signature you submitted to the hospital." Her face, a mask of loving concern only moments before, contorted into a snarl of pure disbelief and rage. You cannot! She was sputtering, her brain failing to compute the sudden, total reversal of her fortunes. "I can," I said simply. "You forgot who I am, Eliza. I write stories like this for a living. I know how the villain thinks, and I know how to write a better ending." As if on cue, Mark stood up and walked calmly to the study door, opening it. 2 uniformed police officers, a man and a woman, were standing quietly in the hallway. They had been waiting. Eliza's eyes darted from me to Mark to the police officers. The panic set in, a wild animal terror. She looked trapped, because she was. "Eliza Miller," the male officer said, his voice impassive. "You are under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder, forgery, and attempted fraud. Please stand up and place your hands behind your back." She finally found her voice, a shrill, ugly shriek. "No, it is a lie! He is sick! His mind is gone! He is confused! Tell them, Steve! Tell them this is a horrible mistake!" I looked at her, at the desperate, ugly pleading on the face I once thought was angelic. I felt nothing but a vast, empty coldness. "The only mistake," I said, "was that you thought I was already dead." 6 months later. The sun was warm on my face. I was on the patio of a small, accessible bungalow 2 towns over, a place that smelled of sea salt and fresh-cut grass instead of roses and betrayal. The legal battle had been messy but short. The evidence was overwhelming. The video of the signing, the testimony from Mark and the PI, the digital trail from her tablet, and the forged DNR were an airtight case. Eliza took a plea bargain to avoid a murder trial. She would spend a very long time in a place with no gardens. My niece Sarah came out onto the patio, carrying 2 glasses of iced tea. She set one down beside me. At 24, she had her mother's kind eyes. "How's the chapter going, Uncle Steve?" she asked. "It is coming along," I said. My hands were still weak, but with a new voice-to-text software, I could write again. The stress of living with a would-be murderer had taken a physical toll, but my liberation had brought a new kind of mental clarity. The doctors said my prognosis had not changed, but I felt more alive than I had in years. Sarah now managed my affairs, a responsibility she took on with a seriousness that made me proud. She was my family, my real anchor. "Do not work too hard," she said, smiling. "You promised you would watch that old black and white movie with me tonight." "It is a date," I said. After she went back inside, I turned my attention back to the laptop screen in front of me. I was not just writing a new novel. I was writing the novel, my story. I had found my purpose again, not in creating fiction, but in telling the truth. I looked at the title I had typed on page 1. Married, medicated, and nearly murdered. I had been a writer who chronicled the darkness in imaginary souls. I never expected to find a monster sleeping beside me. I learned the hard way that the most dangerous evil is not the one that lurks in the shadows. It is the one that smiles at you, brings you tea, and tells you it loves you to death. The biggest lesson, however, was not about betrayal, but about survival. Always, always trust your gut. That small, cold knot of dread in your stomach? It is not paranoia. It is an alarm. And it is ringing for a reason. And that's Steve's incredible story of survival and intellect. A chilling reminder that the deepest betrayals often come from those closest to us. Thank you all so much for listening. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and ring the bell so you never miss an update. We'd love to hear your final thoughts on the story in the comments. Until next time, stay safe and trust your gut. Goodbye for now.